Welcome to Fresh Start one-on-one interview platform where we host global leaders for a personal chat. For those who are unfamiliar with us, Fresh Start is an Israeli FoodTech incubator investing in early-stage startups. Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Tami Meron, the incubator's CTO. Today, I will host Mr. Tom Szaky. Tom is the founder and CEO of TerraCycle. TerraCycle is a global leader in the collection and repurposing of complex waste streams. TerraCycle operates in more than 20 countries, working with some of the world's largest brands, retailers, and manufacturers to create platforms to recycle products and packaging that otherwise go to landfill or incineration. TerraCycle also created a new circular reuse platform called Loop that enables consumers to purchase products in a reusable packaging. On a more personal level, I'm highly connected to the waste reduction agenda. So it is a great honor, Tom, to have you here with me today.
Thanks for having
me. Sorry.
Thanks for having me.
So Tom, I'm sure that people that are watching us right now would love to hear your story, your greatest lows, your highest peaks. What have you learned on your special path?
Absolutely. So in driving a mission-driven organization, our mission at TerraCycle is to eliminate the idea of waste, and we try to do that through for-profit entrepreneurial models. Perhaps one of the biggest lessons I've learned is that when you are driving purpose, it's important to focus on the person you're trying to convince to, agree with you and participate in whatever you're doing, whether it's buy your product or buy your service, not because of the purpose you have, but because how leveraging that purpose is going to benefit them, right? How it's going to help them achieve their goals. Because so many times organizations are being called, saying, well, you have this problem here, or you have that problem there, and you can spend some money to solve it. It's much, much more exciting when you can show them that by investing in solving that problem, how they will benefit their business versus just neutralizing the issue. And that's been a key part of why we've been able to grow so quickly around the world.
Good. And let's go back to 2001, when you initiated TerraCycle. You were one of the pioneers in the waste reduction arena. At that time, waste reduction was not considered as a buzzword or a current trend. Can you name the strongest incentive that motivated you to found TerraCycle?
Yes. I've always viewed garbage as a major problem, but also as an opportunity. Now, on the problem side, ever since the beginning, 20 years ago now, everyone agreed garbage was a problem. What's happened starting in really late 2017, early 2018, is the world agreed it was a crisis, and it hasn't stopped. So that part's elevated measurably in the past few years. But I also think, and what's gotten me into waste is not just solving the problem, but what a tremendous opportunity it is. Just think, everything you possess will one day be property of a garbage company, everything. And for how big an idea that is, it's incredible how uninnovative the major solutions are, which is either put it in a pile or burn it. And garbage is, in fact, the least innovative industry per dollar of revenue it enjoys. So for me, a business that one day owns everything and is uninnovative in its solution is an incredible opportunity to upgrade and rethink the way we think about garbage. And so for me, what's drawn me and kept me in this business is the ability to change our perception of waste. And what's nice is in the past few years ago, it moved from just a problem to a crisis as it pertains to issues.
So how do you think that we get to this global waste crisis?
Well, we get there because we buy too much stuff, right? We vote for this crisis to occur constantly by purchasing things at the rate we purchase them. It's not to say we should stop all purchasing, but we need to modulate our purchasing down in volume, and then we need to purchase things that are much more circular than linear, things that are reusable, or at least recyclable, or at minimum made from recycled content, and avoid things that are none of those things, right? And also, of course, we got to take our volume and appetite down. That's what creates waste.
Okay, this was on a personal level. On a global level or a national level, what should be done with this respect?
Well, it's the exact same answer. right? On a global level, the accumulation of purchase decisions equals the garbage crisis if you multiply all purchase decisions through all people, right? So we as individuals have to begin and create a movement where we perhaps get our happiness not just from the act of purchasing something. And that, I think, is going to be very important, because every environmental problem in the world, whether you care about mass extinction that we're living through, or climate change, or the garbage crisis, is linked to the idea of purchasing things. So we do have to modulate that. And then the role of business within that new framework of lower consumption is to make sure the consumption itself can be as regenerative and as circular as absolutely possible. But business is not capable to modulate consumption downward. Only we are as citizens.
Interesting perspective. Let's dive into the FoodTech arena. What could be done with respect to waste reduction in light of the FoodTech, if we put the emphasis on the FoodTech?
On food.
Yeah, on food.
Absolutely. So I think there's two parts to the question of waste in food. One is the waste of food itself. You know, statistics show that about 50% of the food that is grown is disposed before it's ever consumed, perhaps because the right market conditions aren't there, perhaps because it's not beautiful, you know, it's not the right shape, the right look, perhaps because it's produced and not eaten, perhaps because it expires. There's all these different issues around food waste. And there, I think there's a lot of opportunity for entrepreneurial innovation. There's been a lot of great companies that have emerged that find homes for, you know, the bread that was baked, you know, the day of at a baker and not to be thrown out. And so I think there is a tremendous amount of entrepreneurial innovation in how to reduce food waste by thinking about where does the food waste occur and how can that be moved into different outputs, as well as perhaps changing our desires on having to have a perfect banana or a perfect apple. And there's lots of great companies who are trying to solve all these various questions. Where we work at TerraCycle, where I have my expertise, is on the packaging for food. And how we can make that less wasteful. And through Loop, we're looking at how do we make the food packaging reusable. And then through TerraCycle, looking at how do we make sure it's recycled and made from recycled content. And those are at least the type of options we're trying to make available to people.
Okay, so let's zoom in further into the packaging and plastic crisis. We currently have two leading approaches, recycling and compost. However, the infrastructure and operation methodology for each one of the solution is different, and even one interferes with the other. How would you bridge that gap?
I think it's a very good question. And if I looked at the idea of packaging hierarchy, the best thing to do is eliminate packaging, right? A banana already comes in nature's perfect package. We don't need to then put that in plastic, right? So the first choice is eliminate packaging altogether. And you'll notice your diet will shift to fresh fruits and vegetables and away from packaged fruits and vegetables. And so you may also be healthier as a result. Now, if you do need to buy packaged goods, the best form of packaging is reusable packaging that can just be cleaned and refilled. And there's many ways to achieve reusable packaging, but reuse is the next. After that, it's recycling, where the output of the recycling process makes a new package, which would mean that fundamentally plastic or metal or glass packaging that is not degradable is much better than degradable, right? Overall, I do not want to even put compostable packaging close to the same level as packaging that is recycled and that output is made into a new package. Now, biodegradable packaging is smart in emerging countries that have a high amount of what you call leakage. Leakage is like littering. So countries like Cambodia or certain countries in Central America, Eastern Europe, where if there's no waste management infrastructure and the package is going to find its way into the environment, it is better that it's degradable than not degradable, for sure. But in developed countries, compostable packaging is one of the worst things you can create. And it's bad because it is not something composters want. Most composters, whether Western Europe or North America, will take compostable packaging and sort it out of the food waste and destroy it before they run their composting process. It's why Tesco, #1 retailer in the UK, banned all compostable packaging from its shelves. We recently did a survey on American composters, and only 10% would like to see compostable packaging in the system, And mind you, only 4% of Americans even have access to composting. So I think we should be very careful in compostable packaging in how it sounds versus the reality. So there are applications, but it is on a lower threshold than packaging that can be recycled into another pack form.
At least at this point of time. Tom,
well, but I would argue, I don't think it's going to change, right? Let me just be very clear, because even if you had perfect composting infrastructure, let's just say we wave a magic wand and we say all people in a country have access to composting, which is not the case today, and those composters want the packaging. Let's just say that was the case, which is neither of those are true, but if they were, why take plants, make it into a sophisticated chemical output that can then turn into a plastic, only to take that to something below the starting point, something worse than soil? Why?
It's a good point. It's a good point that you raised. And in your vision, Tom, what are the most promising technologies that will provide us with the best solutions in the food packaging and plastic crisis?
So it's a good question. What comes to my mind is actually what we need to do more than technologies. But I'm going to answer your question directly on technologies. It's not another mousetrap. It's about internalizing the externality of the cost of having cheap disposable packaging. It's packaging taxes. It's like in Israel, Tamir, and having that become much stronger, right? It's about forcing companies to pay the cost of managing the waste. That is 100 times more important than some unique technology. And the reason it is we're in a garbage crisis today. Unique technology takes a long time to develop, takes a long time to mature and be implemented, and we don't have that time, right? So we need economic pressures on companies for forcing them to take financial responsibility over the waste. Because why is, for example, if you walk down the streets of Tel Aviv and you see those cages, where you have your bottles, why are bottles collected in those cages and not flexible packaging? And the reason bottles are collected is because they're valuable. A garbage company can make money. And the reason the flexible packaging is not collected is because the opposite is true. But if we were able to infuse enough money into the system, even flexible packages can be collected and recycled profitably. It just needs that subsidy. And then, yes, technology can help. And there are many exciting technologies coming, technologies in sortation, like really advanced photo recognition and robotic sorting, or really advanced ways to process the waste through examples like chemical recycling. But those are nothing if the economics are not solved, because none of those technologies will be able to run without economic subsidy.
Thank you for sharing that. If we take the COVID-19 period as an excellent case study of an unexpected event that you have to adapt your business accordingly, how did you figure out how to leverage the situation into an advantage?
So COVID, if we zoom out, has been very bad for recyclers. It's been bad because it disrupted supply chains, and recycling is a global network. Most waste collected in Israel is not processed in Israel, right? As an example. It also lowered oil prices, and that downward pressure on oil prices is bad for recyclers. And because of health and safety reasons, many recyclers who have manual processes stopped the process because they didn't want team members interacting with potentially contaminated waste, with the virus. And because of this, we saw a tremendous negative in the industry. The biggest PET recycler in the US went bankrupt a month ago. Suez was hostily taken over by Veolia, just to name a few examples. Wow. Now, we were lucky at TerraCycle. We grew 10% in 2020, and we're going to grow at least 20, 30% this year. But it's because we are looking at recycling in a different lens. Most recyclers, their only revenue is the value of the material after processing. And what we try to think about is other ways to drive value for stakeholders in recycling beyond just the material value. So we got lucky, but that's not good news. We're a small company. The overall industry, I think, was set back very in a major way. And this is on top of 10 years of the business model of recycling being challenging and continuing to get more challenging.
Wow, amazing. Could you share your take on Israel with a special emphasis on the FoodTech field?
Yes, absolutely. I think, well, look, Israel, startup nation, there's so much innovation coming out of Israel, which is incredible. It's an entrepreneurial dream, like a petri dish for entrepreneurship. And to me, there's a lot of exciting areas, to think about how to strengthen waste management, because waste management is also if you look at where startups go, waste management is like the least focused area for startups, right? You have security or medical or internet, all these different things have way more startup intervention. So, to the entrepreneurs out there, think about waste management. And I think where TerraCycle focuses is thinking about how to unlock business models so that we can create supply chains. But we also need to think about innovations in how material is collected, how is it sorted, how is it processed? Each of those three things are fundamentally different questions that many exciting, innovations can take on. And it's about how to strengthen those things. And I would say, how do we get companies, this is sort of the key punchline, to, through business, internalize their externalities before laws force them to. Laws should force them, but they're not there today, right? So for example, in reuse models, that an internalization exists because the company must take back its packaging to fill it again. So you can imagine if you're a company and you're going to get your package back, you're going to design it with a very different lens than if you just have to ship it out of your factory and you never see it again, right? And so there are ways through business models as well, innovative business models, to create that internalization, which is the center point. As you said, it's as we were talking earlier, it's not about the innovation. It's about the internalization of the externality, ideally doing it voluntarily in the short term, and then hopefully through legislation in the long term.
Any current project in Israel that you can share with us?
Well, nothing. There are some exciting things we're working on, but we can't. I can't share what's coming up. But we last year launched, for example, a Herbal Essence, Head and Shoulders shampoo bottle made from ocean plastic, collected around the Mediterranean, which was very exciting. We are thinking about how we can bring Loop one day to Israel, and other ideas as well. So I'm really excited about the market. I in fact married an Israeli, so I'm in Israel every once in a while. So look forward to bringing more innovations to the market.
Okay, to summarize, in the eyes of a young entrepreneur, you're actually living the dream. Any personal tips or thoughts on the process?
Sure. I think two things I would say is don't think too much, just do. Although this probably should be very easy for anyone in Israel to resonate around, because Israelis are very action oriented. And then I would say one thing that could be an interesting thought is there's a lot of power in purposeful entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship that just doesn't just make you money personally, but makes the world better, whether society or the planet. And isn't it exciting to be able to leverage the power of business, not just to create personal wealth, but to also make the planet better, or society better? And I think that I would recommend any entrepreneur thinking about a business proposition, think first about the purpose it does, and then how you can make money at it. Because frankly, making money is easy, but how do we make the actions we do benefit society and the planet?
Definitely. Now, let's move to the exciting part of our conversation. It's a ping-pong short questionnaire. So please try to answer shortly and intuitively. Ready, Tom?
Go.
Your inspiration arrives from?
Innovation.
What is your favorite song?
Tilted.
What is your favorite food?
Vegan hamburgers.
Okay, so let's imagine that you have your vegan hamburger for dinner. Who would you like to invite for that dinner? It could be anyone.
My family.
Okay, let's invite them. If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
Thanks for existing.
Wonderful. So thank you so much, Tom, for sharing with us your wise insights and thoughts, and keep doing the great things that you are doing. And before we end this session, I will give a short teaser regarding our next session. Next time, we're going to interview Mr. David Rabi, the founder and CEO of Tavola. So stay tuned, and thank you again, Tom, and goodbye.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.